Alright, what's up, yins guys? Time for another video, and I'm gonna talk about in this one a basic ballpark idea of what it means to be extreme left or extreme right, and how all this shit you see on YouTube, you know, on the TV news, I mean, it's not about it is, but it's not about. Not about a couple of things that I can mention here. It is and it isn't. Like, it's the extreme left and the right. It could be of many examples, even though this video ain't about any particular one, but I'm trying to class them all together here. And it's like, for example, if you're not, you gotta be in this, what we are expected to be. It dovetails into that video, the story of your enslavement, how countries, and even ain't just countries, they're farms, it's about human farming, but yet it's not just that. It's almost like you can break it down into city and borough and county and all that. Those are sub-farms, and how there's cultures and subcultures, and it dovetails into movies, videos that I made. Well, I made references to movies, excuse me. The word movies came into my head. I made references to movies, but it's videos I made about gang stalking, in which why I think it happens. That all the shit people are missing, and they want to say you're crazy. Depends, you know. There's some things that are over top. For example, if you're, it's all that everybody, when they protest, one protests against the other, they want to remove the other, down with, or death to this guy and in with this other one. Everybody wants a mommy or a daddy, not just on a political level, even a street level, on how this all rolls into a mix. And like, it's mixed up, and people want to keep you one-sided and keep people riled up. And they even want everybody, one side wants everybody to either use legal or illegal drugs, and pitch it to them that it's, they need it, they're sick, they got anxiety, and they want to get everybody riled up and fighting by saying, hey, look, this other person in this political or moral level, they're not with us, so they want to take away your precious medicine, they want to take away your savior, and not make them mad. Like, they want to encourage dependency, you know. So many people, everybody from cults to Charles Manson, everybody, but even on higher political levels, like Democrat, extreme Democrat, you know, they ain't just common sense caring about the poor, which I do. Like, for example, like, you know, you can have it in the right to bear arms, where, if you're don't want to take all the guns away and only have the authorities somebody else puts in to designated right to have guns, then you must be a conservative. What do you do if you're, say, people like me that's not Bible thumper enough to be a conservative with the right to bear arms, but not liberal enough to be a liberal? You know, I feel bad for these massive amounts of poor and lacks of water, people trying to run to other countries when they're running from really bad shit. And then there's mixtures of bad people coming into these countries that are bad, but they're not all bad. You're either, if you're not with our religion, then you have any other questions, if you're too outspoken, if you have a basic moral base, but if you ask too many questions, or you're not totally with us, you must be of Satan, you're the devil. You're a wolf in sheep's clothing, a wolf out to get them in sheep's clothing. So you're required to be a sheep. And then people run the church. That can be the extreme, like one side, extreme conservative, or you got the regressive conservative that wants to keep everybody physically weak and mentally weak, but totally indoctrinated into the religion. And public school, they criticize the public school. And the story of your enslavement video says, it's colleges and public schools are supposed to be a place to learn, read, and write, and learn technical skills so you can get a job in life. But anymore now, they're indoctrination pens, and now colleges are just now more like indoctrination pens for these campus organizers. oh, you're not with us in these protests, you're with these evil other side. If you're not, and then, you know, a street level, and some people in the colleges that want the communism or even a neo-communist shit, equality extremist shit, they want, like, if you're not one of us, then you must be on the side of the government, the side of the police, and yet, then yeah, you get the one side that's ultra for civilization. You can be extreme Republican, right? That anybody that looks to walks around too much of a cocky look on his face and not an obedient worker, and don't like the way you walk around, or your hair, or your face ain't shaven, you should be, or you have any kind of a smart mouth, you should be thrown in jail. But then you got the extreme other side, which goes beyond the having an argument that police state's getting too strong, and it abuses power little by little if you don't keep it in check. I mean, people get shot unarmed for any reason, or beat up because of how they look, you know, whether they find anything on you or not, you know. Now you can get in more trouble for you go just submit to the pat down, and it's like, all right, get it over with. And if you don't, or argue with them during the thing, you know, you can get in more fucking trouble than if you did a petty crime or had a little, you know, everybody knows that, and people are protesting against that, right? The fist in the air, you know, you have the fist in the air, death to the police, death to the government, we want this government. You want to bring out Hillary Clinton and all that, they want to be mommy. You want, you know, if you're not with Hillary and you don't want to be mommied, right? You must be with Trump and you want a rich daddy, you know what I mean? You get some people that are too rich, too powerful, and all that. But then the other side wants everybody equality extremist, and if you don't, they can be an opposite trait to the extreme church, where you don't pay your tithing when you got money. We demand this much of your income. Or they're also and you have the extreme other side. You don't buy a minimum amount of drugs. You must be with the police. You must be a snitch or whatever. So I'm saying if you're not, you must be on the side of the police. If you're this, but then if you don't raise, you raise your hand in the air, death to the police, death to the government, we want. Eventually put this in, and of course they have to hell with police brutality and all that, which is fine. But then when you join the wrong group associated with them, it's not just raising your fist in the air and saying down with, rights abuses and down with, brutality and all that. They're basically raising their fist in the air and saying, down with the police, down with the government, down with civilization as we know it, and hail to the street daddy or the whatever thug daddy that's in there that gives us our drugs. And you got one side, if you piss off one side, got too much of a smart mouth, you can be thrown in jail along with beat up or even shot, right? But then you join their side, right? And if you don't raise your fist in the air and chant their mantras, they see it without question, and say they can do away with all police, even better ones and all that, don't do all that extreme brutality that's out there. Say you got these people, they have their way. They put their kind of equivalent to police in, which you've seen a version of that when Cuba was overthrown. They hung tires over the necks of people. I remember hearing that on when Jim Quinn used to be on a rock and roll station. Set them on fire, and then they had strapped grenades to people's heads. And so if you support communist thing like Antifa is pushing through with their little masks and all that, that's what those fuckers want, just like what Joe Rogan said in Joe Rogan said about Che Guevara in one of his shows. Che Guevara was a ruthless cunt, you know. That's what, yeah, look what they did. So you get people like this. There's people out there that will claim brutality down with the police, but if they can overthrow the system and everything, even though they're not, some people are just different levels or whatever. If they want to do whatever drug they want, it's their business. But then there's an aspect of it that indicates that if you have money in your pocket and you don't put out a certain minimum amount of money, you must be on the side of the police. Or, oh, you're selfish and greedy, even though they don't do it directly. Oh, you're expletive, this or that, selfish, or you snub it. You're too blunt with your opinions and snub them. You can get beat up for it. So what I'm saying is, the one side that doesn't like the other is just as bad as the other. The one side that's really high civilized, you know, you can get beat up, shot, thrown in jail. But yet the other side that hates that side, you can get beat up or shot, but yet they don't have a badge or anything. Their only badge is their daddies on the street, you know, the ones that they buy their drugs from. Instead of calling the cop, if you're too, walk around too cocky, you don't associate heavily, you're just cordial. Like when they just send their people discreetly to have a conversation. You should get beat up, and if you're too selfish or whatever, don't buy a minimum amount of drugs. They have their private little thing. Oh, I don't know, I don't tell. You should be hit in the back of the head, beat up, or shot and robbed. I mean, if you won't put forth a little bit of your money to buy their precious dope and have your fist in the air and things, and down with the police and say hail to the drug daddy. That's what I'm saying. This is what you're expected. If you're not one, damned either way. If you're not one, you're the other. And the one is supposed to be a savior. Oh yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. Beware of those ones that, yeah, even though, yeah, you can have a legit beefs with the police, the things that do happen, and over abuse of power, people that got beat or shot that shouldn't be, you know, I mean, there's a constitutional right we have now that they're trying to ratchet down, that you should have a right to file complaints and go up and protest or go higher. Everybody knows that. But then there's a lot of people out there. There's so many different kind of forms. You're basically, if you're in with people's, unlike people that just basically smoke a joint once in a while or anything else they take that's for medicinal reasons, and people, where they now, you know, you have the opioid epidemic or whatever. Now you got all these people that want to claim to be sick because they want to be high, and it's us against them, you know. The wrong, not against all people that are recovering addicts or that. Some of them are nice people, but you've got ones out there, when you meet up with them, you know them, they're passive aggressive. They have a passive aggressive attitude that you think you're better than they are or whatever too. An us against them philosophy or whatever too. But yeah, there's a lot of that legit protests that are basically under the guise of even some legit protests, which ain't necessarily wrong. It's also used as a cover, as a vehicle for down with police state, down with, but not for good reasons. They want to, but hail to the drug daddy. And when we get power, yeah, even though we claim, yeah, police brutality and all that, but we get our power, which was better, and take over the system. If you offend us and you're not with us and you offend us, you know, we don't need police. We have the reserved right, or the infused right to, if you disrespect us or offend us, we'll commit the same brutality they say the police do. So you get two extreme sides that are just like, yeah, you're not allowed to question that. I mean, there's yeah, you go be mentioning that even subtly in some places, you know, or say it directly to the wrong people if you live in a certain city, you know what I mean? And that's the trouble with why civilization could collapse, whether it's government or collapse of civilization as far as our technology and everything else, and the whole system that takes a lot of money to run, it collapses. And then collapse of moral restraint that can happen, you know. And see, in some places it's just not, it ain't just be nice to me, I'll be nice to you, common courtesy, whether it's somebody a different color as you or somebody in a different financial category as you. Now it's almost like if you're not of this side, you've got to be against the police, against anybody that has more money than you, that may have worked for whatever, down with them. And hail to this daddy, you know what I mean? And then if you don't believe our way, you can get beat up for that. But claiming all the, you know, the police brutality stuff that does happen, of course, I'm not denying that. Same people that, a lot of people that are joining in with that, they think it's totally okay to eventually, you know, overthrow the system. You know what I'm saying? And they could get one of their people, the designated strongman. Yeah, if you're smart, a little bit strong and smart, walk too proudly, it's considered in that culture. Especially when you're in a city, you could get shot and beat up and everything and murdered. Yeah, that's the difference between the extreme left and some of the extreme Republicans that hate the extreme Democrats. Some of them, I'm not being like Trump, but not all of them are like that, but some of them are, Democrats are common sense, you know. I don't consider myself Democrat or Republican. I believe, you know, you want enough of capitalism, you know, that my thing about like say you get the rich to capitalism, you know, you don't want to totally do away with it, but there is a lot of things that are against, the government makes that's supposed to be against the law to a certain point, that capitalists, they'll get so rich by behind the scenes, secretly, or since they got money and power, get the government to create certain laws in so many ways to discourage other people from being in their way business-wise, so that they can have all the money. And you know what I mean? There's like a part of capitalism that's supposed to be illegal. Well, you know, there's like the story of your enslavement said how one thing is ruled. There's the mafia model that isn't that never ruled anything directly. In some cases, they just sent thugs to extort money once a month or whatever. That's the same with the drug gangster style. You know what I mean? Too. Not pointing at any particular color. There's plenty of people of all colors that have their things, you know. Like I said, every person in the world, every race has a mafia, or a wannabe mafia, or a small level mafia to a certain point. You know what I mean? All demand a certain behavior. You know what I mean? And they don't want the only reason they want to do away with police state because they want to to be able to commit the brutality. Their people have the right, and they get their daddy after you. You know, their daddy doesn't have a badge. They'll talk about the one, but they want free range to do what the fuck they please, and then they want to get into government on an extreme side and say this person ain't allowed to have a right to bear arms, and they're not allowed to have an AR-15, in which in a lot of cases you have these target competitions, which I think are awesome. I see them on YouTube, whether guy or girl. Shit, if everything collapses and we have stuff happening which we don't want to see in other countries, the worst thing you can do is just take away the AR-15, right? everybody be sheep. And then now we're into a lot of trouble, right? They want to send people out for the army, right? They take away all the guns, and now they got to hurry up and train people as quickly as possible. That's what will happen. They'll have to hurry up and fucking train everybody as quickly as possible, and then they get killed. But if you keep and maintain the right to have an AR-15, for these people that have these AR-15 target shooting, which there's some scopes and everything, boom, boom, boom. It's better off you keep that. You're gonna have a few people that do some bad things. You're not gonna stop that. People will fucking use a hatchet. These criminals. It's just. But if you take away every single gun, then what I'm saying is especially, I'm talking about especially these, whether it's shotguns or the AR-15, the target contests that people were doing, that I see in some of the Lenny McGill videos. You're better off if you keep and maintain that, because then if you have a lot of those, then you need people for the army. You have it. You know what I mean? But in one scenario, I don't know if a lot of these people would go for it. But what if our president all of a sudden, which a lot of the right to bear arms people were supporters of Trump, but I'm not sure how would they like it if, I don't know, you'd have to take a poll on that to say the president said, okay, you guys, you're all involved in the target shooting competitions. We need you, I need you for the army, go right now, you know what I mean? But I think that's what the original right to bear arms was for, but yet, we started out with old West-like towns that weren't even developed yet. You had bandits out there that, literally too many of them ride in, you'd have, they'd had to call the U.S. Cavalry because, before we had SWAT teams, we had the U.S. Cavalry that wasn't just, say, rounding up a posse, don't do it, in the Old West, like the Old West movies, probably at the time we had a civil war on, I imagine if too much bandits to invade a town to round up a posse, to take out a whole town, they'd bring in the whole U.S. Cavalry, and plus, you had the days of Old West bank robberies, right? And you know how now you have armored trucks going in all the stores to protect it. They had horse and buggies, cavalry people riding shotgun, to protect bandits from taking the money or whatever. But it involved, of course, some carriage too. So, I'm just saying, basically out of memory, it takes too long in a video to be historically correct. You know what I mean? But there's a right to, how come that one side wants to do away with the right to bear? The extreme side that wants to take away the right to bear, that accuses the government, the police state of this, they want to take away all guns, but they're silent, when they talk about these other people on the streets with guns that peddle and sell drugs and do these executions, which the police eventually catch some of them or whatever, but it almost reeks to me, and they want to legalize all drugs and make everybody sick. The sheep, they want the sheep to be perpetually sick. Anybody that has no dependency, don't claim to be sick, all of a sudden is a threat. And if they don't belittle you or harass you, you can get discreetly shot or you get beat up and robbed. But one extreme side, it's almost like if you got this far, doesn't it reek of a type of narco-communism, which certain governments on one side they want to ease into a neo-narco-communism, or a neo, some kind of, like other countries have democracies and republic. You have you got these other countries. Look what the fuck they did with Venezuela. Jesus Christ. And in some of these countries, you got all these, in these South American countries now that are actually going after and executing police. You got people like like in this country, like Antifa and the extreme one side, that, oh, they like that shit, you know? That they want that kind of a dictatorship. They'll claim brutality on the other, but brutality, if they put in their people as far as brutality, oh, that's totally fine, you know. And then if that happens to you, you brought it on yourself, you know, being a snitch or whatever the hell. So, yeah, like I said, that's what anything happens in this country. Say you don't like the government or whatever. I mean, we have the right to rally the right way, you know, and not just like say protest. Do everything that's within your rights to, you know, to get involved politically and all that stuff. Not because anything else, you know, you got these any other kind of an overthrow. That's what you're going to get. And then I was seeing these videos on Joe Rogan about one guy as a guest on there. I think he was a Navy SEAL. You got a couple other people. Why you don't want a civil war in this country in this day and age? Look at these other, yeah, like I said, said about Cuba. Well, you don't think that these fuckers that are the extreme this side won't do that same thing like they did in Cuba, go and burn people with gasoline, put tires on it and burn them with gasoline, or the way they overthrew Cuba? You don't want that. You think you won't? We don't want that damn shit here. Hell no. And yeah, look at all these other countries, like African countries, a lot of other countries, not just Africa, a lot of these other countries that were in civil war and they're affected by it now. Yeah, look at a video on Vice, the cannibal warlords of Liberia. You know, so you don't think you might not have something like that happen here if say, like you got police state that's very expensive to maintain and ain't perfect, and there's a lot of shit, like I says, I wouldn't stick up for government and police. There's a lot of shit you see on the news that you don't condone, but though your worst mistake would be to join these other fuckers out there. Not only if you join in there and protest and say they burn something down and you're just with them, and they decide they arrest some of them and they see you're there, you know, in street cameras. Oh, geez, you're really going to be a hero there, you know, throw your ass straight in federal prison. And, but anyway, like, because if you like a financial collapse, like what we have, like a civilized, basically, you know, it's supposed to be just for the police, like as far as peace officers will prevent some crime that should be prevented, like bank robberies, some shootings and murders, people shooting their wives, yada yada. It's costly to maintain, and you got a country, the military is costly to maintain. And I said things in videos before, I did a little research. Unlike the way we advertise and offer GI Bills and everything, get people to join the army and you can learn something for a career. Other countries, they go and take people's kids, like Burma, they still do it now. And I said in another video about that movie called The Ogre in the Nazi area, where the Nazis were sending these people to take these kids and indoctrinate them. Countries like third world countries, they just take the kids, you know what I mean? And anybody else that don't go with something, they throw you right in prison and execute you. Because they're like a very dictatorial, iron-fisted. And the less developed ones, they don't try to entice you with a GI Bill. They get an army one way or another. They underfed, you know, and they're kidnapped as kids, underfed and brainwashed, and they just teach them it's fun to use guns, and they make them the police state, and hey, and they're hungry and they want something. They don't have the money to pay their soldiers, so the soldiers are encouraged to kill whoever is disobedient, and then they get the spoils. So they're almost like a re-indoctrinated mercenary, but unlike an actual mercenary, they're actually owned because they were kidnapped from their parents and indoctrinated, and then, oh, you get a better life, you want something, you know, crime against the government, you go, that's what, shit, they did that when people fought with the sword. Lesser developed countries, you know. Some of them were owned by the Romans or whatever, that had a lot of places occupied, but yet even though they were under Roman rule or whatever, rule of the day, they were no better than Romans as far as keeping people below them. That's what the hell people were. And you get a financial collapse these days, and say, you know, the government don't have enough money to pay, say, the military or police or whatever, and you get something like civil war and there's no moral restraint. Now, you got that YouTuber Canadian prepper that actually has a lot of videos like that. I mean, that's what the country will end up being like. These and shit, you gotta hope the hell if there's poor people in Venezuela that don't turn into that. Right now, it's like there's really turbulent shit going on in Venezuela where they're fucking up the money system, and there's a point where what they're doing to the people, they ain't gonna be able to keep doing that. They're gonna cause. They're trying to have an uprising. There will be a point when they do have one, the people will be so batshit crazy, even say they defeat their oppressors, they'll be just like them, because what's the chance of any of them being able to set up civilization again? You know, they'll be divided on. To explain it better, when you read about communist Russia, when they had the Russian Revolution of communist Russia, you had the Soviet government. What was put there, everybody was so divided on. Once they overthrow the government, how they're going to run it, you know. But that'll happen to Venezuela. You'll just get another shift of power, and some paranoid psychopath will be just executing people, you know. No different than Vlad the Impaler, Ivan the Terrible, or Adolf Hitler, or anyone damn else.